Hi, I'm Will Hawkins from Headliner Magazine. In this edition of Emerging Headliner powered by JBL, we're welcoming Trevor Anthony of Magic Whatever into the Harman Experience Center here in Los Angeles. We're going to talk about his songwriting process and new releases. So please welcome Trevor Anthony. Thanks for coming in talk to us today.
My pleasure.
And congrats for your 2 million streams of Speak of the Devil.
Thank you.
How does a artist get to 2 million streams?
I think by keeping it pure and just doing what you want to do. I think music happens whether you like it or not, and as long as it's pure to yourself, other people will attach to it, and that's kind of try to keep that compass in mind, you know?
At what point of the release of this song did it seem like it was going to go viral? All of a sudden, it kind of just jumped. Like, when did that happen?
Yeah, so there's a lot that happens behind the scenes before a song comes out, obviously. With that song, we thought we had something special in the studio, and so my agent, who's close friends with Eddie from a band called The Score, which does really great numbers, he offered his help on the song and sang on the second verse, and that gave me a platform to start on, which was, I'm eternally grateful for him to do that for me. But as soon as the song gained a little momentum, it just kind of kept going, and now I have fans and friends all over the world that listen to that song, and I'm very grateful.
And I know we talked a little bit about Eddie before the interview, and I know that he tell us a little bit about your background with Eddie and how soon in your life he became an influence.
Yeah, I mean, we met 2-3 months before that song came out. We both share the same agent, and he kind of played matchmaker, and next thing you know, we're playing basketball together and going out for drinks, and so he kind of had this long con going on that we were unaware about, where he knew that to kind of do a song together, we had to be friends first, and so he kind of set us up on blind dates all the time. And eventually, now we're best friends, and I write songs at his house once, twice a week sometimes, and it was a great move by our agent that we didn't know what was going on at the time.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the ideas of writing new songs.
Yeah.
For you, what is that process like? What does it start? How does it start?
Yeah.
And then when do you bring that in to collaborate with others?
Yeah, it's fun. For me, I like to really hang on by the seat of my pants. I like to, no matter how many ideas I have going into a writing session, they all just kind of leave my mind once you go in there, and it's just a moment in time that happens. For me, it's not a lot of preparation where it starts on an acoustic guitar or piano and then it kind of inches forward. It's kind of like I just kind of get thrown into the fire with a producer who's a great friend who I work well with, and we just kind of riff off each other. And so my disclaimer when I go into every session is producers like to ask, what do you want? What do you want as the artist? What do you want? And I always respond with, it's not about me. What are we doing in this moment in time? And I think that's how I keep my music pure and make my 14-year-old self very happy, is to just kind of, I don't like to overthink it, you know?
Yeah.
A lot of artists like to overthink it. I think ignorance is bliss with a lot of it. Show up and find that first spark and just ride it.
And what do you think your 14-year-old self would think of where you're at in the music you're making right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's the center of everything I do is trying to make teenage me happy. Back then it was Green Day, and my grandma got me this Green Day hits album for Christmas one year, and after hearing that I was like, oh, I can wear black nail polish, I can wear a tie on a t-shirt. I was just a kid trying to explore that it's not all about Frank Sinatra and Etta James that my grandma was always listening to. It's like, oh, you can have distortion and be kind of cool, and that kid that was just excited about this avenue of music, I try to hang on to that now as I'm writing the songs for that kid in a way.
Because he's out there somewhere.
He's out there somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's another question I get a lot is why do you do music? And it's I want to get as many of those kids in the same room.
And I remember when I was 14 and discovering those new bands.
Yeah.
And thinking that you're getting away with something, or thinking that you're not supposed to be hearing it, but it's talking directly to you.
And it starts out as your best kept secret.
Yeah.
And then you tell a friend once it's they're cool enough or something, and then it just kind of becomes your whole personality and consumes you.
And because you're 14 and you know nothing, there's so much of that.
Yeah, it kicks open the door, right?
And then as we're older, it happens less and less. But when it does, it's still special
Yeah.
Because it feels like that artist is like coming through the airwaves and just whispering in your ear.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny. The older I get, I still get inspired by so many artists, but it's not the same as it was. I feel like I've spent so much time writing songs now that when I hear a song, it's like, oh, they wrote that part, or like, how'd they do that, or whatever. So I'm kind of like trying to navigate the like sonic space. But as a kid, it's like this big thing in your face that's just cool.
It's just visceral. It's
yeah.
just, and it shakes your chest.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm so excited. Like, I remember changing overnight. I remember like everyone trying to get me to cut my hair to show my face and stuff like that. Because it's just like the only thing you knew as a kid is like long hair, wear black, listen to music. Like that was it.
When I was 14, I was in the 80s, and I was like a clean cut kid. My dad was a cop, so we were supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I remember Halloween. I was going to be Billy Idol, so I used like at the time
Rad.
10X, and I spiked my hair up, and I never came out of Halloween.
Yeah.
After that, that was like,
yeah.
I was like looked in the mirror. I'm like,
Isn't that
that's
great?
who I am.
Like Halloween is like a sacred space for that.
To kind of explore these dark corners,
and like to tangibly see yourself in the mirror with this, like you've decorated your body to look like how you feel, and it's like an excuse to do that. And then, like you said, it kind of like. I get it now.
And my mom would buy me black for the next 25 years for
there
Christmas.
Goes.
That was.
There goes.
I had to tell her at like 40, but like you can buy me something with a little color in it.
Same. My grandma to this day.
And then she went to the other extreme where I just got Cosby sweaters.
Oh God!
Like,
it's funny that like the needle always tips completely opposite sometimes. Where like I hear that like.
What kind of influence was your grandmother on your music growing up?
Yeah, I was raised by my grandmother. We were born in L.A. She was a ticket scalper, and that's how she raised my dad, my uncle, and my aunt at the old Forum. So it was like she was a scalper for all the rock shows. So rock shows were like always kind of the conversation. And once I got about like I don't know like 7 or 8 years old, my grandma took me in, and we moved up to a very small town in Oregon called Junction City. From that point on, it was just her listening to, like I said, Sinatra, Etta James. Etta James is like somewhere along the line of my aunt became really close friends with Etta James, so it was like this thing that was always around us. Classics like that, and my like I said, my uncle was always around visiting his mom, and he was listening to like Dead Kennedys and The Clash and the Ramones and like old punk bands, and so it kind of these two very different worlds just like crashed into each other. And since it was always the conversation swirling around, there was nothing else. I grew up playing sports and all these things, but it was always about music. The conversation always turned back to that. And so not only like sonically hearing these classics that kind of like I take a lot of like melodic elements from, we also got this like grunge element into our family. And so like I said, like since early conversations started as that, it just kind of never changed for me. I never wanted to like leave that world, you know.
And it's interesting because Etta James and Sinatra went through periods where they were the black sheep.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
They were
Isn't that
on
funny?
the edge,
Yeah.
you know, and they become something as, you know, years later, like the standard. But there were times where, you know, they were told, like, parents would tell them, no, you can't listen to Sinatra.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. My grandma, like, I had to come of age to see that my grandma's not just a grandma. She was a hardcore, like, rocker chick back in the day, you know. And just because she dresses like all the grandmas now, that doesn't mean she's not, like, hardcore and gritty, you know. So,
when did you start playing an instrument?
It's funny. To this day, I've always been surrounded by best friends and people that are just excel a lot at instruments. And I've always been the one in the room that excelled at vocals. So I've only gotten to the point of like writing vocals on an instrument, but not like performing with an instrument. I will in the future. But for I think my 13th birthday, my grandma got me a baby blue Fender Squier. And that was my first time like having something of my own in life. And so I don't think I ever got past like power chords with that thing, but it was like, oh, this is like, I invited a friend over, shout out David Knox, who had a guitar. It was like, oh, so I can do that too, you know, but it came down to when you're writing a song with your best friend, it's like, he plays the guitar, I'll let him play the guitar, you know.
So you do the lyrics and the melody.
I mostly like do the lyric and the melody and kind of like the more big picture, like it should sound like this, or have this sort of drum beat or this guitar tone, or, you know.
And when you start writing that song, is there a narrative in mind? Is there a topic that you
Yeah.
are thinking about beforehand, or is it all just spontaneous and you're figuring it out in the moment?
A little bit of both, for sure. Like I said earlier, there's a lot of like, I have this ongoing note that is just top line ideas, like what the song's about in a few words, and there's just this ongoing list that just goes and goes and goes, and it just seems just by fate when I show up, you start hearing the instrumental, and then like a lot of artists, I start with like a mumble track, just do 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 do, whatever. And sometimes those mumbles sound like a word, and then I battle this like, was that just a mumble or was that some sort of like conscious bleeding through that
Right.
maybe I need to sing about? And so I'd say it's like really 50-50. Is a lot of times it's just like some artists say you're just the antenna in the room, and you're just kind of, all the ideas are coming to you in the moment, and it's your job to just filter them and put them out.
Right. As a songwriter, I'll do that, and I'll speak like just sing nonsense over
Yeah.
a chord structure, but I'll always tape it, and then I'll go back and I'll transcribe all of the nonsense and
Yeah.
try to find the meaning inside of it. And
Exactly.
then there might be one line where, like you said, it's this subconsciousness that's coming out.
Right.
And then I'll start building the song off just that one line.
Yeah, totally. That's the majority of the time I write is exactly like that. Yes.
And great artists like Marvin Gaye used to write that way too. I was
Yeah.
surprised to hear that.
I just learned, it's fun now with TikTok, there's so much you can learn, but like they're starting to come up with names for that, and I saw one that's like a Paul McCartney called it scrambled eggs or something like that. Like,
Right,
it's this thing where
right.
you just kind of throw out gibberish. There's another name for it for Dave Grohl. Like, they kind of token it, but at the end of the day, you're just mumbling until it gives you direction.
So when did you start actually performing live as a singer?
Yeah. When was my first show? I think it was about 15. We played a Battle of the Bands in Portland, Oregon at the Roseland Theater. I remember going there, and it's one of those iconic venues where you walk in and there's photos of the Beatles playing there and Nirvana playing there and all these icons playing there. And that was my first time I realized, I was like, oh, like fucking Kurt Cobain touched this right here. He touched that, and
Yeah.
I'm also touching that. So I'm doing something,
It validates it.
Yeah, it really does. It's like, it becomes real in this way. And I remember we actually enrolled 3 bands in the same Battle of the Bands, but it was all the same members. So we just wanted to play as much as possible. So we're like, all right, let's write a hardcore set, let's write a punk set, and let's write like a screamo set.
I really hope one of those bands won it.
No, no, not even close.
So in that moment, you knew that this is what you wanted, though.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was still fumbling through it, but it's funny. To flip it on its head, it was never like, I want this. It was like, I don't want anything else. Like, this is the
Right.
only thing that makes me feel like something.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So at what point were you able to do it full time? What did you do in between? What were some of the things you did until you could do this full time?
Lots of bands, lots of friends and band members, come and gone. It's a lot of who's willing to stick through the hard times. And I just turned 30 years old, and my whole 20s were counting pennies, you know, and I'm still counting pennies to an extent, but there is now the light at the end of the tunnel is bigger than it's ever been. But yeah, it's a lot of years of trial and error, and thinking you know the answer, and making the world just like prove you wrong, and having like the will to get back up and be wrong again and again and again. But like I said earlier, is like the real thing that matters is I'm making that teenage kid happy, and I'm writing songs that he would listen to.
Yeah.
If I keep it pure like that, I'm not going to worry about the logistics of the whole thing, because you get burnt out, man.
And over the last couple of years, you started doing a lot more touring.
Yes.
So how's that experience been for you to be able to get out there and across
Love
the
it.
country?
I have worked up until last year. I was my agent, my manager, the artist. I was all of it. I would book every show we had. It was to start playing shows, you had to book the show and then find the bands and be the promoter and the artist, and just so you can go do your dinky 25-minute set and have fun. And so years of that, a decade of that, and finally getting an agent, working for a tour on my own, and finally getting an agent who says, like, I believe in it, I want to help you. That was everything to me, because at the end of the day, there's a large network of people booking these tours and it's a business. And I was on the outside looking in for so long. And I think the plus side of that is I gained so much prowess for the industry that now I can check my agent. Like, we can see eye to eye at the table, and I think that's one of my strongest suits because of all the trial and error and being broke and wanting it more than anyone else. And now I feel like an equal at the table with these guys that make the big things happen in the industry, you know.
And how did that booking agent come to find you? How did sometimes that's harder to get than a record deal, is get
Absolutely.
a booking agent. So how did that happen for you?
Yeah, it's actually a solid story. I got invited to this like private event thing at the Viper Room one night, and I met this guy named Matt Reagan. Shout out Matt Reagan. Outside. Long story short, Matt Reagan was my now agent's assistant at the time, and so Matt Reagan would invite me to shows, and Daniel, my now assistant, would get us passes to go to all these shows. So we would just kind of bump into each other at these shows over time, and finally I asked him to go golfing, and I don't know how to golf. I can now, but at the time it was like, here's my in. Went golfing, and it didn't talk music at all. And I think that's what really sparks like a relationship, and not being a punisher and not being like, I'm the best in the world, sign me. We became friends, and 4 hangouts later, he's like, I want to pay for you to do a song with this person, and if it works out, like, I'll sign you. And wrote a good song, and he loved it. And because of that, he started a record label, and now I'm on his record label as well, and it's become like a great partnership. It all started with that like core of being friends and trusting each other and building a relationship first, and then diving into the business, because now we're married for life. So
And what are some of the more obvious differences of being unsigned and now signed? Like, how do your songs get more attention now that you're on a record label?
It's funny because it's a lot of the same shit. It's like it's everything that I was doing before, but now with help and friends that I can say, is this good? Is this shitty? Is this good? Can I have a couple $100? Do some album art here, do some, because we're an independent label, so we're not Capitol or one of these big budget labels, so that like the grind spirit that we have is, it's very helpful to have a village of people that are grinding together for a common goal.
Yeah.
It takes a village for this kind of shit. Like again, I was beating my head against the wall for almost 15 years until finally it was like, oh, this is a well-oiled machine that we can work together on. And I think just that coordination when putting songs out is infinite, because I'm not like lost in the shuffle anymore.
Right.
You know?
And a smaller label, the benefit of that is that it is a village as opposed to Capitol being a city.
Exactly,
And
yeah.
a smaller village can respond to things quicker and faster.
Yeah.
And see a fad or something that's happening, and you can respond to that quicker.
Yeah.
Than this massive ship that needs to be turned.
Absolutely. Like, any decisions that are course correcting for me is an all-day text thread with my agent, calling each other, going to get a beer. Like, it's very grounded experience of he's always there for me. And so all love to him. I don't ever have to like move mountains to do anything, which is huge. When I was independent, it's like I have $0 to my name, and I'm competing with these bands that I'm trying to get on certain bills or tours that have all this funding and established credit that I just don't have. And so having like that in your corner is priceless to me.
And are you getting packaged with some other bands that are like-minded or even managed by the same manager?
Yeah, like I said, my first U.S. tour we have the same agent, so it was really easy to make happen. We did some international shows with the same kind of workflow there, and then we're planning another U.S. tour in a few months. So, it all comes from what I didn't realize growing up in music. It all comes from people just wanting to be around people that they like or people that they feel comfortable with, and it's not about like who wants it the most. It's just like, be a friend, especially when you're on the road for 30 days. No one wants someone who's gonna be a pain, and so like to be someone that people like to be around is so much more valuable than I knew. You know,
there's a term like "who's in your foxhole."
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Exactly.
And if you're an asshole in the foxhole, you don't last very long.
No, not at all. And
know?
I've seen it too. Like on tour, when you go on tour, you're not touring with just the bands. There's crews. There's merch people, the venues. Like, there's just so many people in your ecosystem all the time, and you're already running on zero sleep and coffee and not a lot of food, and you're not nourished. You're tired all the time, and so being on someone's nerves is very easy to do. You know, so it really does take a team of people that are like conscious about how other people are feeling, you know.
How involved are you in your social media marketing and that outreach?
That's great. I'm it's something on my mind a lot because it's in the new age. I personally feel spread out too thin across not only all the platforms, but trying to write the best song, trying to release the best song, album artwork, all these things everywhere. I love what social media does, bringing you closer to your fans. I personally like to maintain song is king, and if I'm going to put all my energy into something, it's going to be the song. Anything I do on social media is a bonus. It comes natural. I'm not going to be that guy that's always pushing themselves. I'm not a TikToker, and I'm not going to compete with TikTokers. But I'd still want to reach out to my fans, so
Which is probably why you would do well at TikTok, frankly. Because it really is, it's visceral, and it reach people in a way that you can communicate directly with them in ways that Facebook and Instagram just doesn't allow you to do.
Yeah, exactly.
I think you'd be surprised how well you would. I mean, you're very articulate and you're very personable. I think you'd be really surprised at how well you would do on it.
Yeah, it's this big monster that I'm like kind of inching myself towards, and trust me, I get all the texts being you need to do more on TikTok, do TikTok, and I see it. I have friends that overnight like their streaming numbers killed it, and they got these tours and they're doing great, and it's such a great tool for that. I'm trying to find this balance of like keeping my mental motivation on music, but still spending a couple hours reaching out on TikTok and all these things. You know, it's this. I want to make it so one hand washes the other with that, and it's not like, all right, focus on TikTok. All right, now focus on music. Like I don't equate the two. But I need to try to do better at TikTok because that's just the way the world is right now.
I have a feeling in a year's time we're going to see you killing it on TikTok. You don't seem like somebody who's just going to let that go.
I know. It's a very valuable tool. It's ignorant to watch it just from afar, you know. So I'm hoping to get better at it. I'm trying to find that. How does it work for me? Like, I'm not a TikToker. I'm not going to be, what's up, guys? So figuring out how that works for me on a personal level and connecting with fans in that way instead of like always selling something all the time.
Right.
You know.
And there is a formula to it. You know, you can't sell 100%.
Yeah.
And you got to share something of yourself.
Right.
Share something of something you like.
Right.
And then maybe 20%, hey, buy my shit.
Yeah.
Somewhere about that.
Yeah, exactly. You got to sneak your message in there somewhere. And I think it's a great point too is that like I don't want to like check boxes on TikTok, like got to do this now, got to do this now, got to do this now, got to do this.
Yeah.
I'd rather just kind of just again back to just being pure about it and like
organic
and hoping. I think a big part of it is just my own self-esteem and doubt that like when you post something, are people gonna like agree with you that like this book is awesome? Or like, you know, like putting yourself out there in that way and then like whether it's going to be a dud and everyone hates you for it or it's like, you know, that like mental game is a lot when you're trying to like write songs too.
It's one of these things, but as a songwriter to be able to be honest about the emotions that you put out, it is kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
Where it's going to hit some people in the chest and other people it's going to go over their shoulder.
It's funny too because a song is the most personal part of it's the deepest part of me that I'm putting out in the world and I don't have any quarrels with anyone listening to it and hating it or loving it or whatever. I don't care. But with TikTok, it's like I hope because I like this book, everyone else like doesn't hate me for it. Like, you know, like some, just like
it
the
really
silly
depends
things
on the book.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But it's just so silly to have that in your way, just because it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
you know? None of it matters.
So, what do we have coming up for you next? What's in the future for you?
Yeah, I just finished recording my debut EP. It's going to be 7 songs. We're going to be playing one today that's not released yet. So right now, my day-to-day is kind of songs are ready to go, album artwork's ready to go. We're kind of just thinking of the marketing strategy, kind of the behind-the-scenes crud, and picking a release date. So as soon as that's out, you'll see me on tour, the whole album cycle thing, hopefully. So
that's great. Yeah. Where can our viewers find you online? What are your socials?
Yeah, I'm at Magic Whatever on everything. I should be just at Magic Whatever. Yeah, I think it's that easy.
That's part of the marketing
I think
too,
that's
is
easy,
being
yeah.
able to, so people can find you.
Yeah,
That's
I
terrific.
forgot about that.
So you got some speakers from JBL, the
Yeah.
3 Series.
Insanely
How's your
grateful.
experience been with that?
Awesome. For my little home studio setup, or like the singer-songwriter setup, to have like a balanced mix in my apartment, fucking golden. Like, I love it.
And how has it helped you write songs, to be able to hear
Yeah.
something that pure?
What's funny, prior to that, like, I hadn't made the plunge to get monitors for my home studio. I just had like headphones in.
What?
No, yeah.
Headphones.
Yeah, exactly. So
Sacrilegious.
So you can't hear the sonic quality of what you're writing. So
You can't.
No, it's like playing a game of telephone between you, the interface, the next person who you're going to produce it with.
How has someone not had an intervention with you before this?
I
kind of feel like I wish I knew you 6 months ago, so I could have been.
Step in and
I could have helped you with this.
No, it's literally like it's probably more damaging than good to be that guy who's like, I just want to write a song and it doesn't
See, this
matter,
could be a TickTock right here.
Yeah,
This could be
exactly.
a TikTok
Thank
right
you.
here.
I need
This is how I was saved. I went from headphones to the JBL 3 Series.
On the spot during an interview, I was saved. But yeah, no, they've helped me a lot in my home studio. Like, again, with the most basic thing is just actually hearing what the song sounds like instead of having Apple headphones or whatever.
Well, that's great, man. I'm glad that you were able to get some benefits
Yeah,
from
I
it. They're
very
really
much appreciate it.
spectacular speakers.
It literally took them showing up at my doorstep for me to be like, all right, home studio time, you know.
Well, thank you so much for coming
Thank
today.
you.
It was a real pleasure to meet you,
Yeah, you as
and
well.
to talk with you today. And I'm Will Hawkins with Headliner Magazine, here with JBL at the Harman Experience Center in Los Angeles, and we will see you next time.